Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one and all back to SimSeniors. Welcome to the Tuesday Night Season 8 Championship. It's good to be back once again. My name is Ben Sapsford, aka Sappytron, and I'll be taking you through tonight's evening. And tonight's evening is an interesting one. It's the Marmite track. You've seen the title, you know what to expect at this point. Of course, welcome everybody who's making their way in right now to the live chat, as well as the drivers who will soon be making their way into the race server, and us eventually into qualifying as we get ourselves rigged and ready. Let's talk drivers, let's talk racers, and let's talk about the matchups in this season that's about to commence. So first things first, let's have a look at our drivers in some of the standings. So we have the gold class in front of us on screen right now. In the lead continues to be David Lindblom. He's been a strong competitor throughout the entire season and continues to impress in the Nismo GT3. Frederick Gaimar is going to be jumping in to second place in the Ford Mustang with Oskari Herme. A great performance last time out, and it is going to be tying Jimmy Engdahl in another Nismo for third place in the points, but does just slightly get it on the positional countback. Heading off to silver, however, we have Richard Cook in, once again, a Ford Mustang. Seems to be a popular car towards the top end. We do have also Adam Ostrashars with a 10-point deficit behind in the BMW GT4, and James Payton in the Mercedes AMG, making some impressive movements forward with the field and with their racing, as there is much to be proven by this driver right here. So you can see the rest of them, of course, on screen, but we move on to the bronze class, and Alex North is going to be your leader in this whole ordeal, as they are going to be the one to take it all right now, and they are going to be hit with 154 points. 140 points is going to be going to Eero, although he is not going to be racing tonight. Unfortunately, there was a close personal loss to him, and this one goes out to him personally. Eero, I hope you're doing well. I'm always here to talk to you, not as a commentator or as someone who is in this league, but as also a friend. So, if you need anyone to talk to, I'm here, and we do both as a group here at SimSeniors as well as an individuals. We wish him all the best as he gets over this difficult loss. Yavni's been a little bit further behind in third place, but let's talk about the track now. It's Zolder. It's the Marmite track of the calendar, as we said earlier, and this is going to be an interesting one. I would be hard-pressed to say that this is anything short of an absolute riot, of course. I think you're going to see a lot of chaos, particularly into turn 1. You're going to see a lot into turn 1. I think you're also going to see a little bit into turn 2 and 3. Not to mention, you also do have the scenario of the first chicane. That does tend to produce a little bit of drama. That's the Kleiner chicane. And then the second chicane, Villeneuve, as well, before you peel yourself out towards the back end of the track. The final, left, then right-hander. A lot of right angles on this course, but it is going to be an interesting one to watch, as we are soon going to get trackside. Of course, anything that you do want to say into any of your drivers out on the circuit, so that could be a driver who you are rooting for, that could be someone that you expect to perform out here well tonight. We want to hear it all. We want to hear all your thoughts, and it's good to see everyone jumping into the live chat as well. So we're going to get underway in just a moment, but it's going to be very exciting. I'm keeping an eye in particular on the top end of things, and we are just wrapping up free practice in a moment. But let's have a look a little bit at the track itself in a little bit more scenic fashion. So, of course, ACC TV provided assets. Thankfully, it gets a really nice track shots and really nice track video that we are able to use. So you can see some of the chicanes, some of the challenges the drivers are going to have to face. Careful of the sausage curbs and careful of how the surface changes, not just in terms of temperature, but also in terms of the grip levels as you transfer from different surface types. The curbs not being the grippiest, and you are going to rely on a little bit of that rubbering in as the course of the track evolution progresses. It's quite cold out there tonight in Zolder. 7 AM local time, 12 degrees track temperatures, no winds, but the track is not being deemed so optimal, as the temperatures are just too low to get those compounds really working in that ideal operating window. So it's going to be a tough one. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully the drivers are. I know we do see some mixed opinions when it comes to the racing and the field for this track, but it will soon be a case of watching the drivers and just letting them do what they do best. There's no other way to describe it, honestly. The thing I'm looking forward to the most is how the racers are pushing and how they're going to be really giving it their all. But here we go, folks. It is going to be qualifying time, and we're jumping track side now. Everyone's jumping in, getting ready. Let's have it. Let's see them all, as the field is quickly making its way out. So 15 minutes left in qualifying. It's going to be a quick rush for everyone to get out right now. And you can see everyone is just racing to get themselves on the field. First out of the grid, it is going to be Jimmy Engdahl. They're going to be our first driver out on course. And they will be making their way quickly as the first to get their time down. I think that's the most important here at Zolder. It is going to be a big deal to get your time underway and get your laps on the field ASAP. No real opportunities to waste here in Zolder. The track is going to be congested. It's not the biggest track in the world. You can already see, even just with a tiny split. Oh no, I can see we've got Aero Racing today. I've just seen him join the session. There we go. Now that the sound bug has been cleared, there was a brief sound bug, but that has now been fixed. We can get back with full audio experience, and just in time to see Jimmy Engdahl start his lap here. Click into turn 1 and dive in quickly into the apex. So let's jump on board with him here, see how he handles the multi-apex corner here. So turn 2, particularly in race trim, is going to be a tough one, as you will be also negotiating the inbound tyre being right on the pit exit, and drivers will be coming out of there, sometimes at brisk pace, to try and get themselves back into the action. Bumping a little bit over the curbs, avoiding the sausages, keeping it nice and clean. Nice again. Once through the chicanes, it's a full power down. You've got to power out here and really lean into the banking. Use it to your advantage. Get those speeds up. As we can see, there is a quick, rapid ascent. It's about 220 kilometers per before heading into the hairpin at the top of the course. A little bit of a leftward kink, and then down the finals, so back the straight. Quick rush down here through final chicane. And it's going to be a decent run first thing here for the Nismo. That's the number 443, and that is going to be first time out, 128.880. Is anyone going to surpass it? 29.2, 31.7, 28.6 coming from Holmberg. So good runs coming from him there. There's going to be a couple more drivers. Frederick Guillemot is just going to be pushing through into the 27s immediately with a 27.805. So quality running there. We're going to start seeing the deltas coming out as well. Here comes Dave Marsh, 29.2. Now, looking to the top as well, we've got Colin McNair, who will be making their way just out of the final hairpin. And they have been a driver that's shown some very high pace. Just needs to help connect it together. Lindblom is a 10.5 down to Guillemot in the first run. So 0.985 is the best they can muster in their opening shot. Now, coming up to the line here is Colin McNair. It's going to be 6th place, 28.887. Second down from the leaders. And last few runs are going to be coming through now. So that's going to be James Payton, third in the silvers. and quickly making their way up to the line. A little bit of a wiggle on the exit there. I think somewhat of a misjudge, but peek into the inside as much as they can. It's going to be 12th and is going to be, I believe that is 4th fastest in the group. Remember, folks, we do have drivers who are competing in their own right, so competing for their own classes, irrespective of the other competitors. And this is going to be the kicker, because you do have multiple class fights going on throughout the course of a race and throughout the course of a qualifying. Like, we can look to the front, we can see Matthias Holmberg, 5th overall, but 1st in the silver group. We also have Anthony Hebert, who is coming out here. You can see this is a perfect demonstration of why the pit exit at Zolder is a little bit dicey. You come right into an active apex. So you have to be very wary of how you handle yourself coming out of there and how the other drivers respond to you. But Hebert is going to be the leader here for the silver. Oh, not the silver, the bronze. That is my mistake. Apologies. But we do have a few more cars now starting to push the envelope. Johan Larsson's going to be the 3rd car, making it into the 27s. David Lindblom has just gone through and got himself a 27.572, so making good on his initial time. And in fact, looks to be pushing that timestamp a little bit further also. Although they have taken a big yield here in this part of the lap. And it looks like they are going to be on a little bit of a cooldown. Carl Thompson just came through up to the line. It's a 29.887, so they are going to be now jumping up into 22nd. And then a lot of the field is going to be... Oh, looks like that is the Lexus who has bowed out off the side of the circuit. That is Damian Reed. So he's going to have to RTP, and he is going to have to set himself up for another run in just a few minutes. Oscari Herme continues to impress, really making the waves here in the gold class bracket. And some standout performances at the end of Season 7. Got promoted in due course with the placement in Season 8 and has really shown their stuff as a top contender. Now making their way up to the line. It's going to be a few tenths up, so could be on track for a 28.3. Could put them 5th fastest. Yes, it is. It's 28.357. Very nicely done there from the Ferrari pilot in the 169. Peyton now coming through once again. Is going to have a little bit of traffic behind them. That's one of the Wolfpack Ferraris, but not in a form of disturbance. I'm going to see them push through all the same. I believe that is Chris Bourne just behind them, with the very distinctive chrome pink and green accents. We are Peyton on a very good run here. 28.4 potentially is going to be a 28.4, 0.432. So very nicely done indeed. Peyton now up to fastest in the silver class. Lindblom coming through and now going to be significantly harder on the push, particularly in this last sector. We could see that jump down into a 27.3 if they link this final sector up. Let's see, making their way quickly to the final chicane, jumping on those brakes. Down all the way to 80 kilometers an hour, ride the apex through. Sweeping it down to the start-finish line. It's going to be even more time gained, and it is a 0.210. A little bit of time loss in Sector 1, so theoretically, a 27.1 is on the table. But even so, that is an insane push early on from Lindblom, establishing himself as a fighter at the very top end. We do have a few more cars now making their way through. Here's Craig Niesbet, for example, one of the bronze holders, and is going to be pushing himself up into 2nd, just overtaking Parkinson for the 2nd in command of that group. There we are. There is Colin McNair as well, 28.6, big jump for him too. And then we have a few more cars making their way. Interestingly, Lenatus not first out of the pit lane. We usually see him be right out the gate immediately, quick to jump ahead of the rest of the competition to get that clean air, but we haven't seen that from him this time. He is still making up good space though. Remember, even just half a second can leapfrog you all the way into the top 10 in this bracket, in this mid-pack here. The times are so condensed. Lenatus though, Linking it up well, up to the line. It is into 10th position, 28.585. Just a 10th faster than McNair. And is going to be a firm third place as Matthias Holmberg is really showing their muscle. Looking like an absolute rocket ship in the 231 Ferrari. That's going to be a 0.632 for the silver. And is going to be even displacing the likes of Engdahl and Larson, who in their own right are very potent and very capable gold class drivers. Damien Reed on the recovery following their wobble at the chicane. It's going to be absolutely flying through. 28.6, that's 12th position for him there. And then last couple of runs will be starting the setup soon. Andy Oldhouse, major improvements here. Has got him on minute 30, but is improving by over a second. So they'll be leapfrogging all the way into 14th place with a very smooth run from the 138. The tic-tac flavoured Ferrari. Hopping a bit over the gravel, but certainly keeping nice and planted on that race course. Last few runs before everyone dives out onto their major run all at once. Waiting for the ideal point of track evolution as the track has now reached optimal setup. A couple more cars making their way. Parkinson has lost his lead on the Delta, although makes it up a little bit through the chicane and hairpin. They're just teetering the line right now. That's the issue here. They're not quite making up the time that they desire. Weeping through. And it is going to be, unfortunately, about a 10th down, so no improvement to be spoken of here. As a few more cars are going to be making their way up to the line, setting and resetting. It's time to see some proper race times get put down on the boards. But so far, everyone is keeping roughly equal. No one's making a major improvement. Although, let's check in at the sharp end of the scale. As remember, Lindblom lost some time in Sector 1, but had a purple Sector 2 and 3. It's currently 0.2 of a second up on his previous. If he can match this, if he can bring this all the way, we might see something as insane as a 26. Even a 26.9 is absolutely legendary. I do see a couple of local yellows coming out, as there is a wobble from some other cars. So I think Carl Thompson was a car that did have a wobble off course. Cleanly ran here from Lindblom right now. Payton as well, RTPing. 2 minutes left in the session. This is where you start to see some drivers who decide to pocket on and decide not to go again. But here comes Lindblom up to the line. Little bit of time lost in that final sector, but it's still enough to get a 0.0. That is ridiculous pace coming out of the Nismo then. And a tough act to follow for anyone on this course. Dave Marsh, we saw him earlier, as well as pushing now. Although he's lost a lot of time in Sector 2 here. Richard Cook is coming up to the line, but is going to be at best in the 29. So no jumps from them here. Marsh could have a chance to push in the final sector and really keep the fires lit. So we have just a few crucial seconds before the final minute. Marsh is coming up to the line. Minor improvement is enough to leapfrog Cook in the standings, but I don't think it's quite enough to get to where they want to be. Cutler coming up is going to improve on time, but not on position. Still need a 10th and a half to get past Johan Larsson and into the top 5. Now, Colin McNair coming up to the line themselves is going to be able to leapfrog James Payton and get themselves into the 127, but again, just behind Justin Cutler and by less than a 10th of a second, no less. Chris Wilson is going to push themselves up into 8th place with a 28.1. And then this is the final set of push runs. You're going to see Lindblom get out of the final chicane and somehow gain even more time. Let's see what he can do. He nails it on the sectors 2 and 3. That is not just a 1:26.9. That is a 26.8. Lindblom continues to set records here and is over half a second apart from Frederick Guillemard, who is their next closest competitor. I don't really know how we're going to see that kind of pace being matched, and he's still pushing. We'll have to check back in on him, as Guillemard is just tailing and waiting behind in the Mustang to see what pace they can extract themselves. Last few laps now coming up to the line, and no major improvements to be spoken of for Richard Cook, so they will be most likely heading in now. That will be Anthony Hebert coming through as well. No major time improvement. This is going to be Guillemard bowing out of their session, having invalidated their lap. Carl Thompson's coming up to the line. Here's the 7-7 for Nismo. And it looks like they are going to be abandoning their lap 2. Morrison's now in the pits, meaning the last couple of runs are going to belong to none other than Lindblom and Richard Cook, although Cook might be on an invalidation themselves. So Lindblom is exact equal on the delta. Will they get an improvement on time? I don't think they will. No, it's going to be a 1:27, and there you go. That is session over, ladies and gentlemen. And in the no particular order, it's going to be Lindblom, followed by Guillemard, and then Jimmy Engdahl is going to complete your top 3 here on the gold class run. Matthias Holmberg is going to be your silver, and is going to be not so closely followed by Chris Wilson and James Payton. Over half a second split between Holmberg and Wilson, so a lot of pace that has been made up in the case of the Ferrari. Finally, you have Anthony Hebert at the sharp end of the bronzes, 28.9, and then Craig Niesbet along with Glenn Parkinson in your 2nd and 3rd spots. And I gotta say, I really do like the colour scheme on this McLaren. It is going to be a very interesting race, folks. That I can all but guarantee you, because the race is going to be a tale of 2 scenarios. On the one hand, it is going to be a race that is all about finding your spot and just running off into the distance. On the other hand, though, we are going to be seeing a duel back and forth between different drivers as they will continue to push each other to the very limit. Eventually, someone is going to break. Everyone has their limit. Everyone has their breaking point. My question is, who is going to reach that limit first, and who is going to be the one that will crash out, effectively? I think we're going to see a bit of flashpoints towards the curbs. Turn 1 is going to be very interesting, I think, in this opening lap. We do see a few different scenarios, a few situations that happen on this course. I'm not going to elaborate more than that, but we are going to have a quick moment here as we get ourselves back onto trackside. And we do have a little bit of a technical hiccup. We're also going to be doing the grid walk, folks. So don't go anywhere just yet, as we are about to get things underway. Looks like we're having a brief technical hiccup. And we are going to be then jumping back in. So bear with us 1 second. We're not going to be taking an intermission like we usually do in the previous rounds, but we are going to be going, there you go, back into the race. There we go. So we are now trackside, And let's talk drivers. Let's talk grid walk. And let's see what the racers have in store. Now, I want to see the drivers really give it everything. I really want to see them give it everything tonight. So let's see what they have in their store here. So we had Liam Blom and then Guillemot in rows 1 and 2. You then have Matthias Holmberg in the 231 Ferrari, followed closely by Jimmy Engdahl in the number 443 Nismo. We're going to also have in row 3, it's going to be Johan Larsson, Wolfpack driver in the 848 McLaren, and then Justin Cutler with the Shark Bite, you can see on the side. Number 35, you've got a boot holes for good measure in the Nismo there. The speed holes, we'll call them speed holes. Iron Brew and leader of SIMseniors is going to be Colin McNair in the number 13, with Chris Wilson alongside in the number 49 Aston V8 Vantage. Row 5 is going to be James Payton, number 248, third in the Season 8 Championship for Silver, and in the Mercedes AMG, only one on the grid. Closely followed by Chris Bourne in the 118 Wolfpack Ferrari. Row 6 is going to be Oskari Herme, the 169 Ferrari, and then Patrick Larson, who is setting off right now, is going to be in the number 230. Another Wolfpack entry to add to the list. Then Lenatus is going to be completing row 7 in the number 12, alongside the Damien Reed-flavoured Lexus. Only Lexus on the grid, and I'm always a fan for more diversity on the course. Row 8 is going to be Andy Aldhouse. It's white, it's green, you love them. Mint flavour or fruit, doesn't matter which. Number 138, and Ostrichars in the classic green and gold in the 74 BMW M4. Row 9 finally is going to be Dave Marsh in the 27 Porsche, and then Richard Cook in the 182 Pink Panther styled Ford Mustang GT3. Anthony Heber, remember, leader of bronze, keep in mind, number 28 Ferrari, and looking absolutely striking in that Ferrari livery, with another Wolfpack driver, this time Nicholas Björklund in the 444 Mustang. Niesbet is going to be row 11 and 331 McLaren, with Glenn Parkinson in the green and gold. Again, great colour scheme in the 720Ss. Closely followed by Craig Morrison, McLaren Shadow livery in tow, black and red accents, very nice. Followed by an official Nissan Nismo livery in the number 774 of Carl Thompson. Eero Risuri, the number 992, and looking in characteristic black and red fashion, very striking, Robert Homer in the number 6, and looking a little bit brighter in terms of paints, although this is the paint that certainly stands out here. That is going to be Roger Disbicus in the 420 Porsche, Peter Smith in number 28 in the 113 McLaren, and then rounding off your order is Randy Zimmer in the 141 orange Ferrari. And that concludes our grid walk, folks. So we are going to jump on board with the helicopter and see exactly how this grid handles a race, because we have a 60-minute race, mandatory stop, fuel is required, pit stops for tyres are optional. We're now going to see what these racers can do in optimal trim as they come to the final chicane and the end of the formation lap. The track is hot here for round 7 of the SIMseniors Tuesday Night Championship. It's Season 8. We've had a lot of stories up until this point, plenty more stories to tell, but now let's see how this championship changes as we get up to the line here. Race control, gonna call it at any moment, and here we go. Green light, go, track is hot, and away we off. It's gonna be a quick one. It's gonna be a sharp incline to the left side immediately as everyone is tussling for position. Everyone's going to be racing their way around as fast as they can to see what space they can gain in early days. Having the inside line on the right side is going to be paramount here for the position, and we're already seeing that as Guillemot has managed to get ahead, and Lindblom is going to be displaced by a couple of tenths of a second. You have Lenatus and Larson going side by side throughout the first couple of corners as there's more scuffles and switch-ups further way down. We also have a little bit of a wobble here from Glenn Parkinson, who's dropped behind a tiny bit, but there is not going to be any major dramas. Bit of contact between 230 and 12. But seriously, Impressive driving from everyone here as they've all managed to keep the fight alive. Dave Marsh, a little bit of a wobble outside the circuit. He's going to concede to Hebert here. And a very nicely done overtake, capitalizing on a mistake. A couple of brief incident flags flagging up for the likes of Lenatus and Larson, as well as a couple of the bronze drivers who are a bit further away. Lindblom is currently at 0.3 of a second and is already trying to pressure GMR back into giving a position back. So it is going to be his personal challenge, considering the pace that he was showing in qualifying, that he gets himself up to first position. Otherwise, he can't get away. GMR's basically boxing him in at this stage of the circuit, although big wobble and off the side of the circuit here in turn 1. That could be the chance here for Lindblom as he goes around the outside. Tries to hold the pace. A little bit of a shake on the throttle, though. And that is going to force them to dip back in. Maybe gets the switch back on the exit here. Does look good on the exit speed. Jumping on the splitter cam. You can see here's Lindblom really pushing it here. Getting right up close to the back bumper, but can they get something here through the chicane? No, they're going to push the pressure, but they're not going to push the spot. Both the cars are bouncing over the curbs, trying to keep it together. Oh, no, that is chaos happening as we see a big washout of multiple cars. In fact, we're going to have to see, I think we're going to have to see a little bit of a replay here and see exactly what is going on. Let's jump to the instant replay here. So this is going to be on board from the perspective of James Payton, going alongside Colin McNair. That's also going to be following behind Cutler. And Chris Wilson is going to go through. He's going to make contact. Goes a bit too hot. Collects Cutler in the process. And the three of them all going to be taken out of the running. Unfortunate to see. Lindblom still challenging further up ahead, but Holmberg has done very well in this race start. Considering he's in silver, this is the space that he absolutely needs. His next closest competitor is Lenatus, and Lenatus right now is over 4 seconds away, if not 5 seconds. But eyes up at the top as GMR has been overtaken through turn 1 by Lindblom. Engdahl's also trying his luck, getting his nose in through the apex of the corner. Does about manage to have it through turns 2 and 3, still side by side, but the next right-hand apex is going to have a bit of a better exit on their way out, barely avoiding the gravel, but GMR has to concede into third place. Johan Larsson also waiting in the wings, watching this whole battle unfold, with Holmberg serving as an intermediary. This is going to be Randy Zimmer going into the pits, and this will be their personal detriment. As we will be still watching on board, trying to get a little bit of information about exactly what is going on around the field. Hermé, we can jump in with them for a moment. You can also see further back, that's going to be Aldhouse and Hebert going for a bit of a duel. Aldhouse managing to get it through the apex of the corner. Nicely done, good overtake from them. But we might see a switchback from Hebert here, and we do see just that. Good switchback from the Ferrari. Even got Dave Marsh potentially nosing up a potential move. While looking up ahead, here's Lenatus poking the nose. Just trying to assert any pressure that they can on Chris Bourne here, because to get ahead of Chris Bourne is to try and bridge the gap between themselves and the front flight. As here is Ascari, you can see no traffic in sight behind of him, but right up front, there is none other than Colin McNair. And is trying their best to just get around. That chicane really does follow a little bit of chaos of its own. Checking around, looking after it all. Eero is going to be in challenge for third place of bronze right now. So hot to the heels of Thompson. Morrison is a little bit further up the road, about 2 seconds. So that means all eyes on this battle for P3. Lenatus has also got a challenge on their hands, as if they don't get past Chris Bourne soon, Damien Reed is going to catch up, and they will be certainly challenging for their second place spot. Just remember, folks, we have the overall standings, but split into 3 classes. We also have net positions relative to class. So right now, Aero is fighting for net P3 against none other than Mr. Carl Thompson, with Craig Morrison in net P2 and Heber in net P1. So despite dueling with other similar traffic, they might not be in the same class, so they might not be the same pressure. Patrick Larson, just checking in on them as they seem to be in the heat of the moment. Ostrichal's breathing down their neck. Damien Reed up ahead. Chris Bourne, meanwhile, having a bit of a wobble and a bit of a mistake coming through the chicane, which gives Lenatus an easy in for the overtake to happen. Looks good. Best session laps coming in left, right, and centre. Liam Blom has now managed to get into that flow state. He's got a 27.3 under the books and is by far the fastest lap here in this race. Closest is going to be Johan Larsson with the 27.950. That's going to be a difficult act to follow. Unfortunately, no one is really going to have that same challenge or that same ability to challenge them. With the gaps up now, we can see that Oscari is also still chasing in a tale as old as time. Here we go here. We do also see further down that Marshall's managed to get by. Cutler, I think, may have made a bit of a mistake. Oldhouse is hunting. Björklund is going to sniff out the apex, but is not going to commit fully to the overtake. But that's... oh no, that's Anthony! Looks like they had a bit of a mistake in the chicane. No contact being displayed, but they are now right in the firing line. There's Craig Morrison right there. All of a sudden, things have got very dicey. So Hebert's lead has gone from hero to 0. As now less than a second stands between him and losing the lead of the group. Interestingly, Holmberg continues to hold their gap to the others in silver. Larson managing to get by and now putting pressure on Gayamar, which we will jump over to see right now. So Johan, mind you, consistent performer in multiple seasons. Has got their work cut out for him. A little bit less aggressive on the curb, but losing time as a result. Choosing safety over peak pace, and I think that will pay dividends. Sweeping their way through. One that we will check on as we come out of the chicane here is going to be Damien Reed. With that Lexus looking quite planted. He sweeps out a little bit before dipping back into the racing line. It's maybe my eyes playing tricks on me, but I don't see the same kind of undulation and same kind of wobbling of the car as I see with some of the other more traditional mid-engines. While we have an overtake situation here, there's going to be Justin Cutler now on the recovery drive following their initial incident through the chicane. Marsh is going to be in the firing line this time. There's Björklund getting a quick move on Andy Aldhouse. All of a sudden, the traps have been sprung in the mid-pack as things are dicing and heating up. Will he be able to hold it? That is the question that currently stands. And right now is going to be a crucial quandary for the racers to consider. We come back to Larson up in P4, and he's challenging up for the podium. There is a yellow flag that comes out, and this time is once again Heber. I'm going to see exactly what happens. It seems to be the chicane. We'll get a replay of exactly what happened, but the chicane seems to be a pain point for this Ferrari. It's twice now that they've wiped out, and through no fault of their own. Or no fault of others, I should say. Yeah, just taking a bit too much on the exit curb. And almost in an identical way to what we saw earlier. In an identical way, we now see them losing out. And dropping all the way down into 24th place. Also known as, I believe, 6th in their group order. Taking the bumper view from Johan Larsson's POV as they continue to toss and turn in the wake of the Mustang for the lead. The curb in the chicane once again. We do see that there's a bit of an advantage in Guillemar's field as they are able to take those curbs and take that chicane a little bit more aggressively, the car being a little bit more pliant. And really what makes good time on here is your ability to... Ooh, saying that nearly could have ended in disaster as that was Chris Bourne going what looked for a split second to be backwards on track. See also here's Colin McNair going for the apex in the hairpin at the top of the course, heading into the final sector. Very good exit there. Holmberg doesn't really have much in the way of a counter-attack or a switchback to be spoken of. However, Holmberg doesn't necessarily need to worry about fighting these guys because they are, again, in a different group and currently 6 seconds clear of the other field. And, whoa, something's happened here. Something has happened indeed, as it looks like there has been a coming together of the two cars. Let's see exactly what happened. So, on to the helicam. This is the 231 and the 169. Oskari Herme and Matthias Holmberg into the final chicane now. Let's see what happens. You can see one of the Ferraris getting very close, cutting it very fine here. And oh no! So, just tapping the rear quarter and in the end crashing both of the cars out. Not ideal whatsoever. So Herme is going to be taking a hit on this one and is going to be, while wounded, still staying out. Although the same cannot be said for Richard Cook. He's going to be heading into the pits in this case. Craig Niesbet is going to be running a little bit slow. And then the 331 McLaren is going to be conceding a position to Chris Bourne. Jumping back up a little bit, and this time on the defense for the top 10 spot. Oskari Herme is still pushing as much as they can. But still, he's got that damage to contend with. He's going to have some serious aero surface damage. His grip is not going to be there, particularly on the front end. He's just not going to have that same turn-in and that same mid to high corner grip, but he still remains committed out to this run, so maybe it's a lot worse looking than it actually is. Hebert and Homer still closing in to try and make up from earlier. Homer this time could be a driver worth watching, but they are dropping away from Peter Smith. Keith Hines on Ostrichars. Jumping onto the heli. This is Hebert now on the recovery. Got to be very careful of the curbs in this Ferrari. You really cannot afford to be taking more, or at least taking the same amount that the likes of the Mustang can or the McLaren. Good outer sweep potential here on these sets of corners in particular. But is closing in on the Porsche of Roger. Niesbet now into the pits as well. They do have a chance to make this happen. Niesbet in the pit still, but Heber is going to get past Dismukes. I say it really is a shame to see Holmberg be dropped down like that, considering they were leading the Silvers. And now it's all gone to the wayside. Jump a little bit further up. You can see Dave Marsh trying their best to close in on Oscari. Still, again, trying to push through the incident that they had and actually having really good pace, although not the same pace that they were previously experiencing. This does mean, by proxy, that Linatas is going to be holding the lead of Silver. And it is going to be their fight to lose, as they do have Damien Reed 2 seconds behind waiting in the wings. We also have a bit of a duel further down, as there is Carl Thompson making their way past James Payton, currently sat much further down in the Silver order. But this means that there's a straight shot between Thompson and chasing Morrison down. Marsh is going to get past Oscari now. And then Payton is going to get back on Carl Thompson. We sweep back up to the top. What we can see is an interesting moment. Now I see McNair just in his own bubble, but really this is an ideal situation. What this is you have a driver right now who is unequivocally in the ideal position to just push time. And in McNair's case, I would do exactly that. I would just focus on pushing time, pushing good laps, and focusing on my own space of the track. I'm not going to push too far ahead. I'm not going to challenge the likes of Larson anytime soon, but what I will do, make the most of the time I have in the space without fighting. And you'll potentially be able to make up a few seconds, which could pay dividends come the other side of the pit stop window. Speaking of a little bit of fighting, we return to a familiar sight as Guillemard is, whoa, bit of contact actually, making a bit of contact at the back. Guillemard, the number 208 Mustang, is going to be on the defensive. Larson making a little bit of a tap just to remind him is there. I guess getting a little bit friendly with the rear fiberglass. And now, having lifted off, is going to keep pushing forward and trying once again to attack. Check a bit further away and see what's happened here. Oh, looks like there might have been a bit of an incident. Let's check exactly what happened. This is the number 992 and the number 77 here. So it's Glenn Parkinson and Ira Basuri. All coming into the hairpin, and no, unfortunate, the two of them just spinning each other out, and that is actually going to be Hebert squeezing and making the gap. So despite their earlier misgivings and their two mistakes, they have actually managed to get themselves back up to the podium of bronze. Very respectable and well done, although they still have 4.5 seconds to make up if they want to even touch Carl Thompson, let alone overtake him. Peyton is on the aggressive. Going to chase Morrison down. Take that lead. Fight that fight. Curiously, we've seen 4 drivers now take their pit stops. We had Scary just do it now, I believe, and then we had Niesbeck, Cook, and Zimmer earlier. Holmberg is also going to be heading into the pits very early on, considering the tyres are going to be put under a lot of pressure at this circuit. But I would personally go something a bit more balanced here. Regardless, though, this is Peyton chasing Morrison into the apex of the first corner, and is going to have the apex of the first corner. How is Morrison going to respond? He's going to tuck in a little bit behind. Is he going to challenge for the apex? And no, they're just going to make contact. And that is going to be Peyton and Morrison coming together. Quick spin for the Mercedes, trying to get out of there as fast as he possibly can. And looks like things have gone quite poorly for these two and for the session in progress. Looks like we have lost James Peyton. Just completely lost him there. So he is going to be disconnected from the session. Yep, so Peyton has officially disconnected from the session. So he is going to be, unfortunately, leaving out here. Sad to say it, but that is a retiree on the books. We did have one retiree earlier. We'll have to check back into the end to see who that was, because unfortunately one of my tools for tracking it did not want to play ball at the start. That's part of the sound bug that we had. But it's sad for Peyton. It really is. You do feel for him. I think that was an honest mistake. I do think that was an honest mistake, but honest mistakes do still have consequences because they are still mistakes at the end of the day. We do have a mistake coming from Hermé in this case, and they are going to be spinning their car around. Quickly getting themselves back on course. No time to be wasting. The track as quick as Zolder. Born making their way through, challenging on Hero. Hero is going to hold a very good defensive line. And will be the car to beat. It's a driver who knows how to hold pace. Granted, they aren't in the best position in the bronze class right now. They are still holding Born off. And considering the class divide, 2 classes apart, it stands for something. They'll go to show that Hero does have the defensive chops. It can certainly hold a race should the situation demand it. Meanwhile, look forward. See, Heber is on the back of Thompson. He's going to be looking as much as he can towards potential options. Bit of 4-wheel slip coming from that Ferrari, having to course correct ever so slightly, heading into turn 2 and to turn 3 now, as the Ferrari and the Nismo are going to continue to duel and do battle. Marsh and Bourne having now headed into the pits. They're going to join the rest of the cohort. There are other 5 drivers who have already done so at this stage of the game. Meanwhile, to the top, Lindblom has peeled out an 11.5-second gap to Jimmy Engdahl and is looking to be a powerhouse, unstoppable at this stage. Doesn't seem to really be any challenge that they cannot overcome in this point. As Johan Larsson is also heading into the pits now, one of the leaders going in is a rarer occurrence, but if they're trying to offset and jump the field, I look forward to it. The laps getting completed left, right and centre. We are currently 17 laps in and counting according to our leaders. We'll switch through. And we'll see what is going to be made of this. One thing I'm curious of is how Lindblom is going to be handling back markers, because as you can see on the track map, there will be back markers that he's having to take care of. So he's already displaced a few. But we are coming up to a larger pack of them fairly soon. But is going to be coming through. Johan Larsson's going to be emerging in P19, just coming out of the pits there. I'm also on the challenge to Rog. 12.5 seconds split Lindblom and Engdahl. The pace on display from this Nismo is insane. There is no other descriptor I have for it. It is just that ridiculous. The pace differential, lap to lap. We are talking a 128 versus a 127, and a mid 127 on average at that. Simply not matching up with the others. Ebba is chasing Thompson down, looking to reassert themselves as the leader of the bronze group. And Thompson's having none of it. Having absolutely none of it. So quick sweep around the field as things do take a bit of an interesting turn. Larsson is going to go for that attack into the first corner. Peter Smith not really going to contest. Robert Homer also having a big issue as they are going to be out on the inside. Let's jump to the helicam and see exactly what happened. So chasing down Rog Dismukas in the 420 Porsche, making their way through into turn 2. Let's see exactly what they did there. Oh, just a bit of four-wheel slip, trying to correct it, barely avoiding contact on the way back into the circuit, and then spinning out onto the grass. They have recovered. Still a hit to the ego. Let's see, here is Lindblom on the back of now Eero. Sweeping through. Not going to be making a big deal out of it. A few drivers now heading in is going to change and upset the order. Thompson and Glenn Parkinson are both going to be in. Craig Morrison as well. That's going to be 3 drivers in at this stage. 4 drivers. There's Björklund, I missed it earlier, is already in the pits, but is now coming out. Peter Smith coming into the pits too. Right on the halfway mark, no less. Really, the strategy is all about optimizing your tyres. Making your optimal spacing, your optimal decisions. I'm a big fan of watching these different pace classes come together. Personally, if, as is said in the live chat, let the aliens be aliens. Let them be ridiculously fast. And let the flames begin. For some of the others. Leonardus and Cutler. Next entrance into the pit lane, and this is going to mean a seismic shift in the grid order, as over half of the cars on the course are now pitted in, well and truly. The few drivers making joins and positions up on pit stops. We will see that come back to pay, with the sessions coming into its second half. We're coming out of the pit lane, and oh, disaster has struck as we exit the pit lane. This is what I feared. So here we are, right on the entrance of the pits. You can see multiple cars making their way out. Coming up to the line here, there's going to be one of the Porsches just coming up ahead. Larson trying to squeeze it, and then just making contact. They just happened out of the pit lane, so that is the number 6 car, Robert Homer, getting involved a second after coming out of the pits. Not even a second after coming out, I'd argue, actually. They just got destroyed out of the pits. And who is that up ahead of them? That is, yes, that is Jimmy Engdahl. So that is the space and the pace that has been carried. Engdahl is actually currently a lap ahead of Johan Larsson. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Pace is unreal. Looking to the sharp end. We have Lindblom, Engdahl, Gaimar all coming in now. Let's see if the rest of the field follows suit. Here's McNair staying out for a little bit longer. 4 drivers only remain to be pitted in. That's McNair, Reed, Ostrachaz, and Disbekes. Meanwhile, we can see Milanatos has taken a bit of an off-track excursion into turn 1. Unfortunately, just a bit too hot, and that's on the gravel. We're absolutely clear, folks. I try not to opine on race control or stewarding situations where possible. I'm happy to give my opinion, which is, as is said in the live chat, I do agree that that is more or less on Larson. You have to yield a little bit of space to allow for pit rejoins. Make sure that everyone is back on the track safe. And passing driver must do so safely. So it's just an unfortunate, unlucky circumstance, I feel. Even so, that is going to set him back big time. Yes, to be clear, stewarding, not really my place to opine. Will happily oblige and engage. So Heber is now making their way through and continuing their fight, continuing their challenge with Thompson. We do also see a couple of chops and changes as some pitters are now heading in. So this is going to be Ostrachaz now coming out of the pit lane and just about getting the space. You can see McNair is also behind. Actually, no, that is McNair a lap ahead. McNair is the only driver who has not pitted in alongside Roger Disbekes in the 420 Porsche. So, these two in particular, they're running on borrowed time. Those tyres are going to be screaming out at them by this point. I think it's a risky move. A bit too overcooked there for both the purple cars. That's the McLaren and the Porsche here. Going a little bit too deep. And then Robert Homer as well, I think, has had a serious hiccup on the chicane. There you go. They are just dipping out onto the grass. We are last 2 cars to pit in. Expected to do so in the next lap or so. 25 minutes in to the end. Track is a tiny bit warmer than when we started, but it's not saying much. It's still only 1 degree, and 13 degrees is not exactly the track temps that you need to get your cars into that operating window. Usually we're looking in the 20s, if not 30s. It's all about perspective, though. As long as you can work compounds to do what you need them to do, that is the main thing. Holmberg on the back of Richard Cook. So now down in P6, looking to try and challenge for their 5th place spot. Thompson is going to be on the defense as Hermé has displaced himself in between him. Thompson and Hebert, my mistake. About to completely mess up one of the names there, but take a breath. Respawn also on the attack here. 22nd going on 21st. And he's a bit of an odd one, because he's currently this far down, but is going to be in the golds. So in reality, Bourne is running a fundamentally different race to many others in the grid. We do have McNair finally pitting in now. And coming out actually in 4th place. So the strategy has really worked out in their favour. Pocketed a healthy advantage and has worked their way up the grid. I mean, look at the position changes relative to the start of the session. You are dancing a delicate tightrope that is the course surface. Delicate tightrope of curbs and tarmac ready to spin you should you make a mistake. Overtakes, I agree, are very hard here at Zolder. Here you go. This is going to be Thompson being overtaken by Oscari Hermé. That is now going to bring Hebert back into the fold, although about 2 seconds away, it's not going to be saying much. And we can see here, that is Matthias Holmberg going deep into the chicane, but a bit of contact coming from Richard Cook there, just tapping the rear axle. Tiny bit of aggression being shown there from the Mustang. Not going to be taking so kindly to the position lost in 15th. Quick sweep, quick attack. Rog is going to now be, however, dropping some serious pace. I think those tyres are thoroughly giving up on them. You've got a serious issue with now him running about 2 to 2.5 seconds slower than the cars in their immediate vicinity. And this actually can be a bit of a safety risk. If you're driving too slow on track, you can be seen as unpredictable. So got to be extra wary when passing him, especially on the corners. Cook on the challenge, trying to catch up to Holmberg. Reed trying to catch up to Rog. And so far being successful. In fact, to the point where they have dived very deep into the apex of the chicane. Or sorry, not the chicane, the hairpin. I keep doing that. So many chicanes on this course. Sweeping through. Quickly making the work of it. There is going to be a bit of contact further away, as there is Zimmer and Smith. Looks like these two have made contact a couple of times. We'll keep an eye on these two as the situation progresses. At this point in time, looks like Smith's gained a bit of a gap, but not in the one that they would like. Meanwhile, Chris Bourne is going to be in 22nd right now. Trying their best to chase down Craig Morrison, the McLaren Shadow livery. The fights are plentiful. And the field is frenetic and fast.
It's actually getting a little bit warmer still. Up to 14 degrees, so this will help with getting those tracks up to temp, getting those tyres up to temp. That is also the ambient, not just track surface. Checking in with our leaders, and a bit of a surreal sight, as we have Lindblom not only 17.5 seconds ahead of Jimmy Engdahl, but with the pace that he's been able to manufacture and to gain, as we saw briefly heading into the hairpin, Lindblom is now coming up to the back of Robert Homer, now effectively being 2 laps ahead, having already lapped some traffic. Not content with just that, once more. Their last lap was their fastest lap, and this one's only a couple of tenths shy. Donatus trying to close in on Rog. Keep in mind, folks, still has not pitted yet. Everyone else on this field has. Roger's the only one who has not pitted and is really pushing those tyres. As you can see there, they dipped out into the exit of the course to the point where Marsh and Larson now have overtaken. I do think this is a little bit too deep into the stint to make this one work in the way they wanted. You can see there you go, finally heading into the pit lane. That is going to be the end of their personal saga. The pit stops are done. And now it is a straight shot to the finish line. I'd stand by what I said earlier. You know, some people at the top looking like absolute rocket ships. Not to be outdone too much by his teammate, however, Engdahl is still majorly ahead of a lot of the others in the field. So GMR is going to be a few seconds behind, but that is still going to be over 10 seconds clear of McNair in 4th place. Lindblom and Engdahl, of course, running same livery, working together, racing as teammates, effectively. Engdahl is going to be in that middle ground, but still well ahead and separating themselves from the others in the class and the rest of the track. They're coming up to lap a couple here and there. We're going to see exactly what happens here, as this is Rog now coming out of the pits and going into 5th place. We're going to immediately see that Ito is on the attack. Immediately going to sweep around to the side, try and get that challenge on into the chicane. No attacking here, but good exit does tee up the 992 Porsche into the next one. Great sweep through on the downhill and then into the braking zone, nice and sharp. Good move there from Ito. Solid sweep and a solid attack is going to inevitably lead to 5th place on the board for bronze, with 1st place being held by Carl Thompson. Very compelling race campaign they've had. They've been facing pressure left, right and centre. They had Oscari breathing down their neck. They had none other than Anthony Hebert breathing down their neck. And even Hebert now is going to be making that challenge. You can see good sweep there and a good attack through the 1st sector. Just let it play out here, but Thompson's not going to be outdone just yet. Brief yellow coming out. As Peter Smith, I think, has had a wobble on the course. Been through the final chicane, it seems. Here we are. Thompson is in fact going to be displaced, as there is Jimmy Engdahl splitting Hebert and Thompson apart. Faster traffic making their way through. You see Hebert is on the defense. They're hard defensive, as Thompson was briefly really pushing forward. You can see that is now Gayamar sweeping through some of the mid-pack runners. And we are talking about lapping. Remember, this is the mid-pack. I'd be inclined to agree that Hebert is certainly exhibiting some of the silver, if not gold, traits. We've seen flashes of brilliance from him throughout this entire season. It's not just here we've seen it. We've also seen it in other courses. Hebert is a force to be reckoned with in the Bronx. Definitely a driver that you will want to monitor. Let's take that chicane a little bit more gently. The McLaren does have the pace here in Zolder, but it's not quite happening here for the number 77. So, final 12 minutes on the clock. Overall thoughts?
The session has been, once again, amazing to watch. It's been great to keep up with all the individual battles. And as the racers are now in the 30s in terms of laps, it's not hard to see why, given the unique layout that it has, Zolder is such a divisive course. I look particularly to that first sector. That first sector is the cause of a lot of upset. You have the infield pit entry at turn 2, which leads directly onto the apex. You have the very dicey left-hand turn 1. Combine that with overall a pretty narrow course. And what you have is a recipe for some chaos. Those chicanes can be unforgiving, especially in the likes of the Ferrari, that doesn't deal too well with sudden bumps. It's a platform that needs to be kept aerodynamically stable. It's a little bit twitchy. Soon as that balance is upset, then you start running into problems with mechanical and aero grip. A lot of drivers really coming into their own and finding some strong pace, as multiple pockets of the racing order are beginning to form. Dave Marsh on the back of Linatus, Reed on the back of Cutler. This is going to be a fight for the ages with the two of them, as this could be crucial points in the balance with their respective races. Cutler is on the defense right now, but Reed is currently leading in the silver, and he needs to get a gold class car as a bit of a buffer. If Linatus does not prevail in their charge upwards, or does prevail, they will need someone to guard. They will need another car to serve as cannon fodder to serve the time. With less than 10 minutes to go, it's not the most viable to expect 7 seconds unless Damien Reed makes a mistake. .3 seconds between Lindblom and Engdahl. No. Who they themselves, along with Frederick Gayamar, are another 15 seconds away from the next cohort, the next major cohort of cars. You can see those timing boards at the top. It's ridiculous how pace can be extracted.
Parkinson, fortunately, just can't quite match the aggression that the other drivers are exhibiting with their cars. Nismo, pretty good over the bumps. Same goes with the Mustang. McLaren, less so. Ferrari, definitely not. Definitely not that one. Eight minutes left. Things are looking fairly settled, all things in mind. Yeah, Parkinson potentially challenging Peter Smith and then Marsh as well, but everyone else has settled into their pockets. And this is a unique one when it comes to longer racing formats. Now, I know that in terms of saying, quote, longer formats, 60 minutes is nothing. Looking at least 3-4 hours before you can call it a longer event. But it's something that I genuinely do get curious about. It's about whether those longer events, in terms of the viewing experience, can sometimes suffer a little bit, because you are seeing drivers just lock in their positions. They're not really going for the moves that you'd want them to go for. They're biding their time and playing the long game, which as a team or as a driver, absolutely, that's what you should do. Yeah, but you don't always see those attacks, and you don't always see those moments of action, those real moments of heroism come through. Drivers choose consistency and safety of their strat. They need things to be predictable. And that predictability breeds the success that they want. So running through and checking in class by class on current leaders. First place is David Lindblom, 25 seconds clear of teammate Engdahl. In second place, Frederick AMR is going to be in your third, and despite losing a little bit of time to Jimmy, is still pushing to fight that good fight and get them back on the leash. As AMR is happy with the podium, yes, but I assume they want more. Meanwhile, in the silvers, you have a certain Damien Reed taking the grid out of nowhere and by a certain storm. Good moves up and down the course. Damien Reed is going to be your current leader for the silvers, and that is going to be closely complemented by none other than Thomas Linatus. But early quali merchant, not today though. I think that might have been a gamble, but in the end turns out to be a bit of a blessing, as currently sat in second in the silver. Patrick Larson is going to be your third in the 230 Wolfpack Ferrari, having had a fairly quiet race. They've had earlier issues. I think there was a couple of bit of traffic incidents, but they have shown and continue to show throughout this race session and beyond that they are a driver to watch, a driver to take a keen eye to as we head into the last stages, the latter stages. Meanwhile, though, did have a bit of a wobble. Johan Larsson is coming out of the first chicane off track. So may find themselves in a bit of struggle down the line. 4 minutes to go. Let us know as well in the chat who you have been rooting for and who you are happy and proud of this season. I've already seen some opinions in the chat. We're seeing the likes of Niesbet. We're seeing the likes of Hebert to the point where he could make a viable case for being moved up to silver.
as well as other things. So, of course, let us know in the live chat what you thought of today's racing so far, and who you want to see on top. That's the other thing. Who do you want to see crowning champion at the end of all this? The end of the SimSeniors Season 8 Tuesday Night Championship. Bit of a wider sweep as the camera does eventually catch up to, like, saying Dahl here. At 26 seconds is a pretty ridiculous margin to hold. That is nothing short of wizardry. Witchcraft and wizardry, I tell you. Woodhouse could be looking to make a chase here as well. The Hermit did overtake Heber, Thompson, etc. So I'm inclined to agree with Heber, seeing some opinions rolling through. Seeing Heber, I'm seeing Thomas Lunatus, I'm seeing Colin McNair. Get those impressions in. Of course, there are many others. At the end of the day, everyone on this course is, well, should be proud to be here. They deserve it. And they're putting on a great race, a great showing for us. Having done so lap in, lap out, week in, week out for a long time. Unfortunately, that is going to be Randy Zimmer now into the trap. Into the gravel trap. And that will be them taking a bit of a detour before they get back onto circuit. But we're coming up to the last 1 minute 30 now, folks. And when that happens, we do have a final call from race control. They'll call that leader is on the final lap, and that is all the impetus we need to really drive forward. If there's any chance that you are looking for a move around this time with 60 seconds to go, now is the time to make it. Lenatus is going to capitalize on that late game attack and is going to push himself up into P8. Dave Marsh is going to follow. As they're dealing with a bit of bump markers, that does give them time to extend and stretch out their space. Good to see you'll be back in the Lambo soon, Paul. Good to see you in the live chat. Back in the Lamborghini. Look forward to it. Glenn Parkinson chasing Thompson down. 20 seconds to go. There is, albeit faint, a call from race control to say that the leader is started the final lap. All going way too hot there. Parkinson is going to be into the gravel. Luckily managed to make a very quick recovery. Very quick recovery indeed. A fiery attack, and as the timer goes to 0, there is really only one car that we can look at and focus on as we end this session out. The drivers are going to be making their way through, and once the leader crosses the line, the rest of the field can and finish their respective races. But this has been, for Lindblom, one of the most boring races in his career. Which also means that it has been one of his most successful. 27 seconds clear of Engdahl. And a immense track record to boot in both consistent lapped pace and in qualifying. Remember that, 26. They're coming through to the final corners, really running it to the line. David Lindblom, the 888 car, comes to hit that start-finish line and is going to be our winner here in gold. Amazing stuff, brilliant running, and an absolutely spectacular finish. You see Engdahl now making his way through the final chicane. He's going to be our second finisher here. We also have a few on the back of the boards who have finished up. Coming up to the line, there is Jimmy Engdahl. Proud second place in the 443 Nismo, and then followed by Frederick Gaimar. Looking immaculate and looking rapid, crossing the line. Third place for the gold. Great stuff there. You do also have a few more cars coming through here. So let's see, Justin Cutler is going to be in between two of the silvers. And it is going to be Damian Reed, the 979 Lexus. They will be your leading silver class car. And they will be your top winner, top driver here. Coming up to the line, we do have Cutler coming through, but then Lenatus is going to be in second place, so another good result from Thomas here. One that they'll certainly be proud of, and one you can immediately see them pride their excitement on. But there is the final timing order. You can see there is Lenatus, and then Patrick Larson in third place in the silvers. Followed then in the bronzes, it's going to be Anthony Hebert. Done absolutely immensely well. Multiple mistakes on the chicane. Peels it back to still get first place. Ridiculous pace, ridiculous speed, and a great finish in top spot. Carl Thompson is going to be close behind, followed by Glenn Parkinson in second and third. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, where we're going to be leaving it for today. It has been great to host the race with you. And it has been a great pleasure to come on board once again and to have you all here along for the ride. Now, we can, of course, talk about the field that we are going to be seeing next, about the racers and the racetrack that we can then go forward soon to see. And the racetrack in question is going to be none other than, if my previewer works, if my previewer decides not to, then so be it. There you go. There is Spa-Francorchamps. Round 8 is heading over to Spa, and this is going to be next week, where you can catch me and the rest of the racers of the Tuesday Night Championship. So, thank you very much, as always, folks. It has been a pleasure. The field has done immensely well, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this championship wraps up as we come to the final 3 races. We've only got until about mid-April, and then the championship for the season is done. That's going to be a bit of a weird feeling as we come up to the end. But thank you again, everybody. It's been great to see you all. Thank you to everyone who's chiming in the chat, throwing their ideas, their 2 cents, and I will see you all very soon. But goodbye for now, and we'll see you next week. Same time next week for round 8 in Spa. Good night.